Well, hello everyone. This is Math 0018, Section 2.7. This whole chapter is an introduction to equations. And today's lesson, we're going to solve equations that are of the form ax equals b. Now, in that format, a and b are going to be actual numbers, and x is going to be the variable that we're looking for. So let's get started. Let me get my pen. It's been a while since I've done a video, so might be kind of rusty. We'll see how this goes. All right, so we have equations up here. 2x equals 6, 10x equals 30, and negative 8x equals negative 24. Every single one of those equations has 3 as its solution. So those are considered to be equivalent equations. Now, when we just looked at a section back in 2.6, and we were solving equations that were of the form, let me get rid of this. Sorry. And hopefully you can't hear my phone ringing. Sorry about that if you can. Anyway, when we just did section 2.6, we learned that if it was an addition between the number and the variable, you had to use subtraction. And if it was subtraction, you had to use addition. So today, we're going to be looking at equations that involve multiplication. So we're going to have to use division to solve for those. So this uses the multiplication property of equality, which basically says that you can multiply both sides of an equation by the same non-zero number without changing its solution. And that also applies to division. You can divide both sides of the equation by the same number, except you can't divide by 0 because that's undefined. So basically that's what we're going to be doing, is dividing by the coefficient. So that's the only step we really have today. This is a one-step equation, which makes it kind of nice. And what you're going to do is divide each side of the equation by the coefficient when the coefficient is an integer or a decimal. So if you've got a regular number there in front or a decimal, you divide by that coefficient. All right, so let's look at some examples. So number 1, it says to solve and check, and we have 6x equals 12. Now I know a lot of you can figure this out without having to do any steps, but you want to make sure you write the steps out and that you know what you're doing so that when you get to longer problems, you understand the process. So you're trying to get rid of the 6 because you want the x to be all by itself. That's always your goal when you solve equations, is to get a variable equal to a constant. So this is the process you should be going through in your brain. The operation between the 6 and the x is multiplication. So to get rid of it, you have to use division. So we're going to divide both sides by 6. Okay, draw a short little line to show division there. Well, what happens on the left is that 6 over 6 cancels out. That's just 1, and we're just left with x, 1x, or just x. And then 12 divided by 6 would be 2. And you check them the same way that we've checked equations in the past. You take your solution and you plug it into the equation where the x is. So 6 times 2 should equal 12. Well, 6 times 2 is 12, and that equals 12. So your answer checks out. So that's how you check them. A lot of them you can just check in your head, and it's worth the 2 to 3 seconds that you waste, or it's not a waste, to check your answer and make sure you've got it right. Now, look at number 2. This one's a little tricky because the coefficient that we're trying to get rid of there is negative 5. So you have to divide by that coefficient, which means that you're going to divide by negative 5. You use the same sign. So that is really the opposite of what we just learned in section 2.6, because there we had to use addition or subtraction. So we were always using the opposite sign. So one thing to write in your notes is that when you have with multiplication or division in your equation, you have to use the same sign. Very important when you're multiplying or dividing, okay? Because that's going to give you a positive x over here. 2 negatives cancels out to a positive x, and then 35 divided by negative 5 would give you a negative 7. So that way you come out with a positive sign on your variable. You always want to know what is x. You don't want to know what is negative x. Very important. Now look at number 3. Same idea. We have negative 4a equals negative 16. So we want to get rid of that negative 4. The way you do that is once again divide by negative 4 on both sides. So the negative 4's cancel, and we bring down a, and a negative divided by a negative. Remember, if the signs are the same, with division, the answer is positive, and that would be positive 4. Look at number 4. 7x equals negative 42. So here you want to get rid of that 7 to get the x by itself. So we're going to divide by 7, positive 7 on both sides. The 7's cancel. The x comes down, and negative 42 divided by 7 gives you negative 6. Now, number 5, a lot of people may look at that and say, what am I supposed to do? There's nothing to do there. But we just talked about this. We want to know what x equals, not what negative x equals. So what you want to remember, since you have that negative sign there, is there's understood to be a 1. I just made a mess, but anyway, a 1 in front of that x. That's the coefficient that you're trying to get rid of, is that negative 1. So since that's multiplication, we're going to divide. Same steps that we've been doing. Divide by negative 1 on both sides. Those two negatives cancel to give us a positive x, which is what we want. And then 34 divided by negative 1 would be negative 34. So you're not done until you have x completely by itself. In other words, no signs, no coefficients, nothing. You just want plain old x. Now look at number 6. It looks kind of crazy because the variable's on the right-hand side of the equal sign. The p is on the other side. So the coefficient that you want to get rid of is negative 7. So you're going to divide by negative 7 on both sides. So the negative 7's cancel on the right, and we get p equals 28 divided by negative 7 would be negative 4. If that makes you crazy to see the negative 4 on the left, you can always rewrite your answer. P equals negative 4. Okay? So, because sometimes just something simple as that makes it look more normal, and that's fine to rewrite it. Now, look at number 7. I'm glad I looked through this section before I started this video because now I have to find my calculator. I went and got it. There it is. All right, so because we're going to be dividing some pretty nasty decimals on number 7, we want to get rid of the 4.48. So we're going to divide both sides by 4.48. Now, quick, what's that in your head? I don't know either. Okay, so 18.2336 divided by 4.48. Make sure you put the 18 into the calculator first, and you should get 4.07. Okay? And with a weird answer like that, you can always go back and check it by multiplying it. If you multiply 4.48 times 4.07, you get the answer, 18.2336. So it works. Okay. So now, this one gets a lot of people confused because of the 0, so just be careful. We're still trying to get rid of the coefficient beside the a, so we're going to divide by negative 7 on both sides. And the negative 7's cancel, so we have a. Now, if you're not sure, if you can't remember the rules about 0, then put it into your calculator. If you do 0 divided by negative 7, or 0 divided by 7, don't even worry about the signs, it's going to give you 0. A is 0. Okay? Also remember what we talked about way back in chapter 1. 0 over any number, that's okay. That equals 0. If it's a number divided by 0, no, you can't do it. That's undefined. So make sure you keep that straight because a lot of people get those mixed up. Now look at number 9. Excuse me. This one's a little bit different because we have two terms with variables on them. But those are like terms. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to combine them. 5x minus 3x would just be 2x. You just combine those coefficients on the variable terms. Okay? Equals 14. Well, now we're right back to the same type of equations that we've been doing. So we divide by 2 on both sides. The 2's cancel, and x equals 7. Now, if you were to go back and check this, you would need to make sure that you put the 7 in both places for the x. So let's check this one real quick. You're going to put in 5 times 7 minus 3 times 7 should equal 14. Well, 5 times 7 is 35. Bring down your minus sign. 3 times 7 is 21. Okay, and then if we subtract, you get 14 equals 14. So it works. Okay, So you can always check all of your answers to these equations. All right, so pause the video and try these on your own, and then when you're done, you can start the video again and check your work. All right, number 1, 4x equals negative 44. We're going to divide by 4 on both sides. The 4's cancel, and x equals negative 11 because the signs were different. Number 2, negative 3x equals negative 9. I'm going to divide by negative 3 because remember you have to use the same sign. Divide by negative 3 on both sides, so that gives me a positive x, and over here 2 negatives when you divide is going to be a positive 3. Number 3, the variable's on the right hand side, so I need to divide by 7 on both sides to get rid of that coefficient, so the x comes down, and 35 divided by 7 is 5. Now, number 4, this one's kind of tricky. You want to get rid of the negative 10. It's multiplication, so we're going to divide by negative 10. So I was kind of nasty giving you all this type of answer. It doesn't come out nice and even, okay? You get A, but you can't divide 15 by 10. But we can reduce that. 5 goes into both the top and the bottom numbers there. So we're going to have a negative, and a lot of times it's easier just to put the negative in front of your fraction. So 15 divided by 5 is going to be 3 on top, and 10 divided by 5 is 2. So you get negative 3/2 as your answer. And then number 5, remember you're trying to get rid of the coefficient, so we're going to divide by negative 4 on both sides. The negative 4's cancel, and x equals 0 divided by any number is just 0. And number 6, you've got like terms right there. So that's your first step. 6n minus 3n would be 3n. And that equals 12. Then divide by 3 on both sides. So the 3's cancel, and we get n equals 4. And I think there's one more. Right, number 7, okay? Lovely decimals again. Thank goodness for calculators. You should divide both sides by 2.1 on both sides. And we get x on the left. And let's see, 13.188 divided by 2.1 comes out to be 6.28. And that should be it for section 2.7. So good luck with the homework and quiz.